Thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you.
I mean, it's a beautiful space.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful
Yeah, it
location.
is.
The weather cooperated in the end, and
Thank God.
and I know we've been chatting with you and Luisa a long time to make this happen. So I'm really happy that
We'll
you
do
guys.
definitely more, and everybody's welcome anytime.
Yeah.
And now we'll go to the
Great partnership.
chat about
Thank
watches.
you.
Thank you. So Paul, it's funny. We were chatting right before. We were trying to remember where we first met, and we met like I think it's 10 years ago, and in New York, right? And that's when you were just getting started at Phillips, and now 10 years later, I mean, Phillips has become a powerhouse in watch auctions, and I think it's really a testament to Paul's work, and it goes to what I was talking earlier, that I really enjoy these moments because we can really ask any question to someone who's extremely knowledgeable, probably one of the most knowledgeable people about these topics in the world. So Paul, I wanted to pick your brain. I was going to do something a little different because we've done these before. I wanted to go back to before Phillips and how you got to there. And I was doing some research last night. I understand you were an engineer at Lockheed, so he's a smart guy. And I see parallels with engineering because engineering is about things and it's about precision, which I think translates. So tell me a little bit about your journey to watches from engineering, et cetera.
Yeah, well, thank you, Daniel. Thank you to all of you for being here with us, and to the St. Regis team for hosting us. We were really grateful, and of course to the Campari group who are providing us great beverages tonight. Thank you. 10 years, you mentioned. It's also Phillips' 10-year anniversary, but yesterday was my 11-year anniversary at Phillips. And it's been an interesting journey on how I got here, and it's thanks to an incredible retail experience when I was 10 years old. My father was a collector of many things, including coins, and especially coins, and I got the collecting gene from him. I was collecting baseball cards and coins, and one day after a coin show in Manhattan, in Christmas time, he takes me on Fifth Avenue, and we're walking up the street and seeing all the shops decorated for the holidays, and we passed by a watch store called Wempe. This is 1986, and it's wintertime and cold, and I walk past Wempe, and my dad liked watches too, and he stops there, and I'm looking inside the vitrine, the showcase. It's displaying watches that have price tags that I couldn't believe. $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 for what? A watch? What is this world? And a beautiful sales lady, she saw the excitement in my eye. She said, "Gentlemen, would you like to come inside? Dad, we have to go in." So I grabbed him. She sits us down, and she plays on my enthusiasm, and she says, "Young man, what would you like to see?" I pointed out an IWC pocket watch that had a retail price of $23,000. She brings it over, she opens up the case back, and I see a movement for the first time, the engine of a watch, in this warm, inviting atmosphere with this really kind woman who wanted to show me this wonderful world I had no idea existed. And I see these red ruby, the jewels. I see gold-plated bridges, and I see a balance wheel, the heart of a watch ticking back and forth. I was absolutely mesmerized, and it was love at first sight. And from that moment, I knew watches were for me. Also at age 10, same age, I knew I was going to become an electrical engineer. Oh, wow. And my life had two parallel paths, watches and an engineering track. And my education was in engineering. I got a job with Lockheed Martin out of college, grad school. I had abandoned watches. It was a passion between my father and me until I got into undergrad, and then he passed away in 2002, and then I got back into watches, and I got very, very active once again when I remembered that my happiest memories with my father were with watches. And now that I was no longer in grad school, I was writing about watches, and then opportunities started to knock. I had an engineering career, and then Phillips was about to get started, and they reached out to me because I was a collector. I was a client of Orel Bax, who had left Christie's in 2013 and was starting this new firm in 2014. And because I was never a dealer, I was always a collector. I was never in the industry. He wanted some fresh eyes, but he knew I was an engineer. And he said, "Paul, why don't you come join Phillips? Help me build this from a clean sheet of paper. We'll be all about highest quality timepieces. We'll sell far less than our competitors. We'll be dedicated to scholarship, dedicated to transparency." I said, "This sounds amazing." Checked with my wife. She said, "Paul, you've got to do it." And with her blessing, I quit my day job, signed on with Phillips, even before Aurel Bax, who was our founder, was able to sign with Phillips. And that's why it was 11 years yesterday that I'm now with Phillips.
I'd say it was a wise decision. I wanted to bring up, because you brought two things that I thought was interesting. So this is a 1950s watch. As you can see, you can't see anything. It's a beautiful movement, but they were hidden because back then they hadn't figured out how to do the
Transparent sapphire
the sapphire cases. If you go in those cases, you're going to be able to see the whole movement now because that technology caught up to that. But it's interesting you're talking about back then. You know, it wasn't so obvious. Most of the watches didn't have anything that you could see the movement. Nowadays, a lot of watching collecting is because you want to see the movement. Because let's be honest, if you really care about the time, you're probably going to use your iPhone. But what I'm curious is, since you started, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the best moments, because I think it's 2017 you guys sell the Paul Newman, which anybody who knows about Rolex, that is the most famous of the Rolex Daytonas. And they sold it and broke a lot of records. You probably had a few other amazing moments. Tell us about those. It's 10 years, or 11 years.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to have sold Paul Newman Daytona. 2 years after we had our first auction, we launched New York with the sale of that watch. That was my first auction with our New York team. Now we're 8 years down the road, but that watch, put us really on the map. We started the bidding at $1 million, having no idea what it would do, and to our major surprise, it sold for $17.8 million, which to this day is the highest price ever paid for a vintage watch, and for any wristwatch that was a non-charity watch. That watch led to the second Paul Newman-owned Daytona that we sold. We had the good fortune of selling in, I think, 2020 for $5.4 million. Before that, the year prior, we sold Marlon Brando's Rolex GMT Master that he wore in the movie Apocalypse Now. In that same auction, we were very fortunate to sell the Rolex day date of the golfing great Jack Nicklaus, and we sold that for a world record price of $1.2 million, with all the proceeds going to his charity, the Nicklaus Children's Foundation. We've been involved in a lot of charitable sales that are very memorable to us and very meaningful to us. We sold the highest price ever paid for a British timepiece, Roger Smith's No. 2 pocket watch, which has an incredible story behind it. It's a story of human perseverance and, in the face of failure, getting up and trying again really hard. And that sold for $4.9 million a couple of years back. So we were very, very fortunate to join and start this company, this department, as the popularity for wristwatch collecting has grown tremendously, and we were very, very happy to see the growth over the years.
I guess we have to give a little history too. The watch collecting of vintage really starts with the Italians, and I always think that they're a little ahead of the trend. And there was this auction house, Ontoporum, which really kind of started that whole thing. And it's funny how that vintage watches, they used to just be old, and then at some point it became cool. And I think a lot of them goes to them. But I think we can all agree that your career was a lot more interesting than if you had stayed as an engineer at Lockheed.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's a much more peaceful product than making warfighting machines.
So I wanted to talk about, there's a couple of really cool pieces, and we were chatting about one of them earlier, and that is there's a Rolex in there, 1950s Rolex that's in the case, and it is very collectible. And tell us a little bit. It's a higher complication Rolex, which are very rare in the 1950s. Rolex wasn't really known for doing that. So tell me a little bit about that. Why that's so special, and why is it so collectible?
Yeah, in that showcase, it's about 20 watches from our fall auctions. 20 of about 250 will ultimately sell through to December. That one is the signature piece of that selection. It's a Rolex. The nickname is an Italian name, Padalone, because Italian collectors were ahead of the curve. They have excellent taste in watches and really helped shape watch collecting to what it is today. And so many of the collectible timepieces have these Italian nicknames. So Padalone is Italian for pie pan. And if you look at this watch from the 1950s, the dial is flat in the center, and then towards the outer circumference, outer rim, it's curving. And if you imagine turning that dial, the face, upside down, it looks just like a pie pan. So Padalone. So in the 1950s, this is post-World War II, Rolex was extremely creative. In the 1950s, it's now peacetime, and people are happy. There's a lot more sporting activity and lifestyle and leisure things going on, and watch brands wanted to capitalize on what's going on in society. So designs become more beautiful and sensual. Rolex introduces some complications. The first time in 1949, they have a triple calendar with moon phase, and they're competing with brands like Patek Philippe, Jaeger-LeCoultre, and Vacheron Constantin, who were making these types of watches, and Rolex was thinking, well, maybe we can go a little bit upmarket. So they create this watch. They make it for only 3 years because Rolex is not meant to be luxury, and nobody wanted that watch, and so they discontinued it. But it's absolutely beautiful. It has the day, the month, and the date, and a moon phase at 6 o'clock, and it's sized at 38 millimeters. Because there were so many complications, it had to be a little bit bigger. Back then, it was too big for that era. Today, everyone wants bigger watches, so it's extremely sought after because it was oversized back then. Today, it's just perfect. It's a Rolex watch, so Rolexes are made to be worn, and people wore them daily. So about 2,000 in total were made. Just a small handful have ever come to market that have hardly been worn. That one had came to the market in 2018 from the family of the original owner, who barely wore it. Imagine a car you drive. Most watches are worn every day, and they look like a car that's been driven 300,000 miles. That's a watch that looks like a car that's been driven 1,000 miles. And that is extraordinarily hard to find, especially in a Rolex. And because of that, the condition is amazing. It's exactly the case as it was delivered from the factory. Nobody ever polished it and took away the sharp edges, the details, refinished the dial to make it look better. It's completely original. And to find something like that, it is a treasure. So that watch has an auction estimate of $250,000 to $500,000. It's amazing on the wrist. It's one of my favorite watches of all time. And for any collector of vintage Rolex watches, these triple calendar moon phases are like a trophy that crowns a collection of vintage watches.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that back then, watches really were for time telling. You know, we didn't have iPhones, so complications, that's become more of a thing now. But back then, it was rare to find a watch that was super complicated. And out of those, Rolex did very, very few. So it's very, very special. So I wanted to fast forward a little bit to where we are today, because a lot's happened in the last 5 years. We had COVID, which ran the market up dramatically. And then now we've got tariffs, which are 39%, which is one of the highest in the world, and that's on Switzerland. So I'm curious, and I want to talk about independence after, so I kind of want to just focus right now on how you think this is going to affect the majors. How is it going to affect the secondary market?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think we may have a couple people who work in the industry in the group, and maybe they're on the retail side. So we're on the pre-owned side, and especially auction. It's a big deal. I mean, imagine you're an American and you want to buy a brand new Swiss watch. Any Swiss watch that's imported, no matter where it comes from, if it comes from Japan, but most of the new watches are coming from Switzerland, of course, there is a 39% tariff on the import cost. So retailers, they take in the watch, they import it at a wholesale price. So that's the wholesale price that will be tariffed. So 39% on top of that. Retailers have to make money. They have to add a bit of profit on top of that, which is going to cut into what people can afford, and prices are going to unfortunately go up. On the secondary market, there's a stock of watches that are in the United States that don't have a tariff to be paid. Any watch that comes into the United States that's pre-owned is going to have a tariff assessed on it. We, as an auction house, we seek watches for auction, and we can only now source watches in the United States. Previously, we could source watches from anywhere in the world. You just send it in, and the import fee is minimal, maybe 3%, very affordable. Now, if we want to import any watch, it's a 39% additional cost. Nobody wants to cover that. So what's going to happen in auction is Americans may not want to bid on an auction watch in Geneva or Hong Kong, because once they buy it in Geneva or Hong Kong and they want to bring it into the United States, 39% tariff on the full purchase price. In the US, if you're an American bidder, you don't have to pay any tariff. At the same time, there's a US dollar weakness that's going on in the economy. And American dollars are actually lower value compared to the Swiss franc. The Swiss franc is at an all-time high, and it harms the Swiss manufacturers too because they have their costs and they have to be paid in Swiss francs. Americans want to pay in American dollars, but the Swiss franc is so valuable, so prices are absolutely going to rise. That's going to be one effect. We don't know how long the tariff is going to last. It may change tomorrow. Nobody knows. But we have to deal with the hand we're dealt. And so it's been a challenge for us, but I can tell you what, anyone who sells a watch in a New York auction this season is going to benefit greatly because you have the full participation of Americans. You have the full participation of worldwide bidders who have no tariff on that side, and they have a stronger valued currency against the American dollar.
It might even create like regional kind of markets where the U.S. is kind of an island to itself, right? Because you don't have the foreign, but you bring up a good point. The foreign buyers can still buy U.S. and because they're not subject to it. Very, very, very interesting. Well, huh. And I wanted to talk about the independents for a second too, before we wrapped up, because I know that's been surprisingly strong. So we've been a big fan of independent watchmaking in our club. We've always supported them. We're doing, we've got several events now with other independent brands. And I'm a big fan, and one of the reasons I'm a big fan is because I think independents are the ones that are really innovating. The bigger brands aren't as much, but I'd be curious to see what you think the effects will be there, and just in general, the independents.
Yeah, we'll call it the rise of the independents. Over the past 7 or 8 years, wristwatch collecting is always going to evolve. And over the past 5, 6 years, because wristwatch collecting has become so popular and mainstream, there's like longtime collectors who want something different. So there's the Patek Phillips, there's the Rolexes, the Audemars Piguets, which have been around for such a long time. But the independents really started at the turn of the century, in around the year 2000, with F.P. Journe launching, with other brands like Richard Mille launching. And it was uncertain how they would do. But people who started actually studying them, trying them on their wrists, speaking to these watchmakers, they started to fall in love because these watches were created with such passion and with such dedication, with no guarantee of success. And these watchmakers poured their hearts and souls into these timepieces with no sure bet that they're going to succeed. And whether they made money or not, they didn't care. They just wanted to create something great, and they would hope buyers would come out. And people saw that, and they loved that. And then when they bought it, they wore it, maybe a problem happened because these are young brands, and they're not fully engineered like a major manufacturer to work out the kinks. So there's a charm to them. It doesn't work. The watchmaker himself, the guy whose name is on the dial, will take that watch back and talk to you about what happened. And then you'll develop a relationship. Where on earth can you talk to the actual maker that's making your watch and interact? And then he'll make you a custom watch because you were an early adopter of his pieces. So people want what others don't have. And independents are so few in production compared to the mainstream watches. It's become now the hottest thing in watch collecting, independent brands.
There's 3 that I would point out that I saw for the first time, and they're in the case, and you got to pronounce the name.
Yeah. So we brought a Lederer, which he makes probably 30 watches per year, and he's only been around maybe since 2022, 2023. We have a Berneron, which is an asymmetric, very Dali-esque design, and I think he's made about 100 watches, if that, since his founding. And Hodinký Berkus. Hodinký means watch in Czech, and he's a Czech Republic-based watchmaker. Custom making watches. Every single one is a custom piece, and it's really quirky and really awesome.
And it's not subject to the 39% tariff, I guess.
Correct, because it's made in Czech.
I want to wrap up, and then I'll open it up to everyone for questions. But I did want to ask, this is a new question too that I've never asked anyone, but I thought of it today, and it's like, it's 2040, and and if you could look back, what would you tell 2025 Paul to do? What do you think?
Buy watches. Yeah, no. I would just tell you, tell me, go for it. If there's a watch you love and it really speaks to you, buy it. you will never regret it if you love it. And that's really the most important thing. Buy what you love. Buy the best condition. If you're looking at vintage, buy the best condition you can afford. If it's a new watch that you absolutely love and you have to stretch your budget, you may have to call your mom to get a loan, do it. Make it happen. You will really thank yourself later on. Just buy the best you can afford.
I'm going to do it. Any questions?
I have a question.
Fabrice.
Can you tell us how you guys got the Paul Newman, the original? How you guys got that watch, and what was that process to put it in auction? That must have been amazing. So how did you...
That's a great question. Thank you. That was because of reputation. That was the reputation of the guy who I followed, who I decided to leave Lockheed Martin, a stable career, and just join this new team. It's Aurel Bax. He's just a great leader, a great scholar in watches, and he's been doing this his entire career. He's always taken care of his clients, always. And a longtime client was a really great collector. And he had a lawyer who was the same lawyer for the owner of the Paul Newman, Paul Newman. So the owner of the Paul Newman was the ex-boyfriend of Paul Newman's daughter, Nell Newman. Nell Newman had her own charity. She was pushed out of the Newman's Own Foundation, which was Paul Newman's organic food brand, Newman's Own. She was pushed out of that charity and decided to start her own charity. They were ex-boyfriend and girlfriend, but they were best friends. And with Nell Newman's new charity, the owner, James Cox, was given the watch by Paul Newman in 1983 when he got another Daytona from his wife, Joanne Woodward. So he got a replacement Daytona, took this other Paul Newman Daytona, the original, and gave it to James Cox, the boyfriend who was at their house for the summer in 1983. Loved him. He's a lovable guy. If you meet James Cox, he's the most lovable guy. And you could see why Paul Newman fell in love with him. So he gives him the watch. James has it. The whole world doesn't know where it is. Even nobody knew. So James, with the secret watch, said, I want to help Nell Newman start her charity. I want to sell this watch. It's going to be a charitable donation. I don't know where to begin. He calls his lawyer. His lawyer talks to him, and he says, I know a guy, the old client of Aurel. I know he's a big watch collector. Let me ask him. So the lawyer calls this collector. His name is Tom. Hey, Tom, what if somebody has the Paul Newman Daytona? What do you think its value, and what should he do if he wants to sell it? Oh, Paul Newman Daytona, it's worth $100,000. He could sell it at any auction. No. This is Paul Newman Daytona. What? Really? Oh, wow. You have to call Aurel Bax. And that's how it happened. He was referred. So Tom Bolt calls Aurel in Switzerland, and he says to Aurel, what if somebody has a Paul Newman Daytona, Paul Newman Daytona, what should he do? He could sell it at any auction, it's fine. No, it's Paul Newman Daytona. Same thing happened. What? Tell me more. The next day, Aurel was on a flight from Geneva to Los Angeles to meet with James Cox. They met. This was April 2016. They met. They hit it off immediately. And Aurel left with the watch in hand. And we had it from April 2016, and we didn't sell it until October 2017 because we had to get the story to be bulletproof. Yeah. Because the whole world would doubt whether this is the watch or not. He told James and Nell Newman, and of course I was part of the whole project, go into your drawers, go into your attics, try to find a picture from the 1980s of you with the watch with Paul Newman. They did, they searched, and they found one picture. Wow. One picture. James is like this, Nell Newman is like this, James is 20, Nell is probably 22 or something, and there's the watch. And that was the picture that allowed us to go forward without any doubt. This was going to be a very convincing watch to sell.
I have to say a little history here for people that aren't watch people. So when we say Paul Newman, it's because this particular Daytona was worn by Paul Newman in a movie long ago, and then everybody started calling that style a Paul Newman because he wore it. So imagine every watch that looks like this is called a Paul Newman, but there's only one that was actually worn by Paul Newman, and this is the one. Yeah, it's very, very cool.
But it helped shape that calling a Daytona a Paul Newman Daytona by the Italians helped.
Oh, that was the
Italians.
Started the
Yep,
whole thing.
they started the whole thing.
There you go.
That helped. That really helped shape wristwatch collecting in general. It was a real cultural shift that helped make watches popular. It was so important to Rolex that in the 1990s they created a book on Paul Newman, which I have. James gave me a copy, and it says by Rolex, and it was all for Paul Newman. It really helped the brand tremendously.
Yep, that's it. And that's the beauty of watches. There's always these stories and storytelling. David.
Did anyone disclose who bought that? No, it's still a secret. Because
You
usually
know.
you see like Patek Philippe or Rolex.
He knows.
I know.
Yes, I do know. But my prior career, I had a top secret clearance. So I'm very good with secrets.
It's probably on a yacht somewhere in South.
Sir.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, Ricardo.
Question, and you said, well, we arrived late, but when you see a watch, buy it. And I think, AP and all brands are making watches a lot more desirable. And how much would you say, is it marketing? In the case of AP, remember they had West Time, and they were selling them 30% off, and you could find whatever. And now there's this story that they say with COVID and everything, factories closed down, so we're not available.
Demand, supply.
But then you find out that Audemars Piguet is making the watches for Richard Mille. So what is the logic in that? If you have a lot of demand and back orders as Audemars Piguet, why do you want to help out Richard Mille?
So years ago, they were making the watches for Richard Mille. Not so much today. There's the AP Renault et Papy division, which is like a specialist maker for many different brands. But they serve the industry. One interesting thing about the Swiss watch industry, not as much today, but in the past, they were all working together because they were in it together as a community and industry. So Jaeger-LeCoultre would make the movements, Vacheron Constantin, Patek Philippe, and Audemars Piguet would partner with them to figure out how to make things better for the survival of the industry. It was a beautiful thing. It was symbiotic. To this day, the brands want to help other brands. Chanel is investing in FP Journe, it's investing in Romain Gaultier, it's investing in MB&F because they want to help this cottage industry survive. A brand like AP, it is a high quality brand that's been around since 1875. They make exceptional quality watches. Watch collecting and watch buying has become so popular, especially post-COVID, that there's so many people around the world who want these watches. But their machines, their people, they can only make so many to keep the quality high. If you go too much, then your quality becomes lower, and then you become very mass-produced. They don't want to be that. They want to keep the quality high. Yes, they're going to devote some resource to helping other brands, but today AP is not so much helping Richard Mille as it used to. To get Richard Mille off the ground in the early 2000s, AP was making the watches for them pretty much fully. That's changed. What you're seeing is really the unfortunate part of watches becoming mainstream. It's a blessing and a curse. A blessing that more people recognize that you're a man of great taste, you have a great watch, your friends want to get into it. That's really great. The curse is there's not enough watches to feed all the mouths who want them. The curse is people who don't want to see and notice your watch are noticing your watch, and it becomes a security risk. This is the downside of things becoming mainstream.
No, I'm asking as a base of business, where you're seeing,
So I will repeat that AP is not so much making the watches anymore for Richard Mille. Used to be. So it's more of third-party manufacturer that's helping with the movements. It's a company called Vaucher that's making most of the movements for Richard Mille. But they're a behind-the-scenes company that helps many brands, and they're not a watch brand themselves. Vaucher, it's a specialist maker that is its existence is to create movements for other brands.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Question. How do you know, like you love a watch, how do you know what's going to become a collector item?
That's the 2040 looking back.
Yeah, so it's a very good question. It's very difficult. It's all about education, and it's all about speaking to people who know to get yourself knowledge.
It's about being Italian.
Or having good Italian friends.
I know Agnelli was the first one that wore his watch on the top of
The sleeve and the shirt.
So that's my hometown in Torino.
Yeah, so
But
you.
I still don't know how to
Yeah, it is the established brands. There's thousands of brands out there, and they're all competing for your money, all of them. You are the boss. You have to decide who deserves your money, and you have to look for those brands that are truly innovative in making great quality timepieces for what they're charging. You want to get the value that you feel is true and great. So we look for the watch brands that we sell and the models we sell are those from those brands that create iconic models. They're their own original designs that have stood the test of time. They're from brands who have offered a consistent level of quality across their existence. They've never gone down market. They've never gone too up market. They've always stayed consistent to where they want to be. They're reliable. They're robust. They create watches that fit wrist sizes of all types. That's very difficult. They're devoted to great watchmaking, how to make a watch more precise, how to make complications that are cool and unique. And if you read an auction catalog, this gives you a good sense of what brands and what models will be a good place to put your money for the long term. Because we're very selective. We reject 90% of the watches that are proposed to us.
How many years normally you need to have a watch for? Like what's considered collectible? Is that 10 years, 20 years, 30 years?
Nobody knows. So it's always a surprise. The burner-on we mentioned, the guy started creating watches maybe 2 years ago. And the retail price was about $50,000 or $60,000. And he took a risk. He went out on his own. He was a Breitling, a watchmaker for Breitling, and left. And he left on bad terms, and it was a really awful story. And in severe debt, he's still putting his heart and soul into creating watches he really believed in. And people heard this story, and they loved it, and they started buying his watches. And they're really cool with this asymmetric shape. The first one ever to come to auction was last week in our Geneva sale. And against a $60,000 retail price last year, it sold for $300,000. Who would have imagined? It's the market. The market decides.
But it's storytelling and it's quality and it's all
quality.
those things together. It's like art. The reason
Yeah.
why an artist sticks out from all the rest.
It's original designs. He didn't copy anyone. He had his own design in mind, and that's what we look for. People who innovate and don't copy others. That's super important.
Well, I think with that, we can wrap up. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Daniel. Give me a hug.
That was awesome. Thank you. 10 years later. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.